All right, welcome back, everybody, to Real Time for the Real Everyday Movie Fan. I'm, of course, Josh Williams.
I'm Ryan Murphy.
And I'm James Sheridan.
Thank you so much for joining us here today because we're here to give you our spoiler-heavy review of She-Hulk Season 1. Now, Brian, who was the showrunner and who all starred in this?
This showrunner was Jessica Gao. The two directors for various episodes were Anu Valia and Kat Coiro. And of course, the series was stars Tatiana Maslany in the lead role, as well as Renee Elise Goldsberry. You always do this, and I always forget to look shit up. So I'm just going to Google it right now. She-Hulk cast. Tatiana Maslany, Jamil, Ginger Gonzaga, and Josh Segarra, Tim Roth, and Charlie Cox, and of course Mark Ruffalo in a handful of episodes. So
there's still some other people who were there here and there, but that's the main people who were involved. And I think Renee Goldsberry, she was the other lawyer who was in the office who had some
Ryan mentioned her.
Some good dialogue time. So we're going to go heavy spoilers here, folks. Before we get into this, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you receive all of our various content we have coming up for you here on Real Time. Now, let's get into this, guys. Who wants to go first?
I want James to go first because I want to hear.
Actually, let's change it up. I want James to go first.
Yeah,
let's have James go first.
Oh God.
Because if you hate it, you're the bad guy, not us.
I actually really love this series. My problem with the series is everything around the series. I will fully admit that the series itself was very uneven, and there are some issues I have with it. But for the most part, I thought it was a very well done series. I thought there was a lot of actually great little bits of commentary and especially meta commentary towards the end of things. But unfortunately, a lot of my experience with this show was mired by a small contingent of fans who were very vocal about disliking this show, and it flooded all of my social media for weeks to the point where I didn't enjoy watching the show because of it. And it kind of ruined my experience for it. And I don't usually let those people kind of ruin this experience, but it just sort of it was just endless. And I don't know. I thought that there were things that were great. Like I said, the commentary, the social commentary, the meta commentary, it had a lot of fun exploring sort of a different side of the MCU than we've seen before, especially the more I don't want to say more human side of the MCU, but most of the MCU takes place on a larger sort of scale or within just the scope of a specific superhero's world. Whereas this one was very deliberately, because she is a lawyer, it's connecting to a lot of aspects of the Marvel universe that the more mundane sort of superpowered people and the people who are affected by those more mundane characters, we got an awesome opportunity to bring out a lot of sort of D-level characters who never would show up in anything else. But because of the nature of this story, it fits in perfectly. And that last episode just blew me out of the water. I loved it so much. It got a little messy with some of the cameos. I felt like some of the cameos just happened a little too often. Where you're there's a point where they literally tell you this isn't going to be a cameo show, but literally with the next two episodes, there's cameos of major Marvel characters, and it's just tell me a story. Don't be the cameo show. And even towards the end, it ended up being everyone was waiting for one specific character to show up. And don't get me wrong, his appearance in the show was great. But endlessly, all I heard about was, when is this character going to show up? When is this character going to show up? When does this character show up? Completely taking away from the actual enjoyment of the show, the actual show itself. Just focusing on when is this character going to appear. And I don't know. I really want to be excited and enthusiastic about this, but I just find it draining. And I'm dreading that I'm gonna have to sit here and explain a bunch of things to people forever, because some people just don't seem to comprehend what the show was trying to say. They seem to think that it was saying one thing when it really wasn't saying that. And I'm just exhausted of having to talk about that.
Yeah, we'll break down to that here in a bit, because I'm curious how I think I know what you're talking about, which it may help clear my mind up about a certain plot points that I found very eye-rolling. Let's put it that way. Not plot points, but character motivations, character reasonings, and things like that. But what was your score? What would you give it, James?
Just because it was so uneven and like it was trying to do one thing, it didn't really succeed in doing that one thing, but other things that it did so well at. Probably going to give it like a 7.5.
Okay, that's not bad. I'll go ahead and go. I agree with you. This show is very uneven. And I don't want to be put in the category of all those. I know people talking about it, the fucking trolls who are just bashing it because it's a woman or things like that or whatever it may be. There's just on a filmmaking level, it's very uneven. It didn't know exactly what it was trying to say, not until like the last 2 episodes, honestly. Like from the first majority of it, you're kind of like, what the hell are we doing here, guys? Like, what's going on? We don't know, and that's a problem. I mean, yeah, they had some stuff going on in the background, but that's nothing. I mean, this was in the terms of a story wrecking show, you need something that's a focal point. They didn't really have that, and you can't just say a focal point was the character study, because if you do that, then you would have focused more on the character. Then you're more focused on the atmosphere, and you're more focused on the world and these and stuff like that. I didn't find it. I didn't find it very focused. Now the actress who played She-Hulk, she did a great job. I think she did a good job. Tatiana Maslany. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I apologize if I'm not. But yeah, that she did a great job what she was given. I mean, for me, it all comes down to the screenplay. And a lot of the script, a lot of things that were said, a lot of the motivations. And I'll probably just give it a 6.5, maybe a 7, depending upon how I think about more after we get talking more. And the things that I found eye rolling was a lot of people are claiming like this is, like just like with Captain Marvel, it's like the first big superhero movie with a woman that's the focus. It's not. There's been plenty in the past.
Who's claimed that?
Oh, I've seen it on the internet, plenty.
Okay, I've not heard a single person claim this was the first big woman property. Like we had Wonder Woman and fucking.
That it was about the more of empowering a woman and stuff like that. And
again,
to me,
Wonder
you
Woman.
can empower a woman without. This is the problem I had. You can empower a woman without intentionally man bashing. And that may be a problem I have. And then maybe you can clear some up for me, James. But there's some lines that were said that, yes, we all know that there's horrible men out there. There are some pretty shitty human beings for men out there, but so are there women. And for me, like, it just focused on all men are horrible. And that's kind of just for horrible sake. And the only one who got a break was the guy, the lawyer, Hug, and then Matt Murdock.
And Bruce and...
Well, no, actually, Bruce. I mean, if you remember the beginning of she was kind of going on like she doesn't know what she's going through. He doesn't hold a candle what she's been through.
That's like, not what she said, though. That is very much not what she said, and that's
yes, it was. Come on,
no, it wasn't. It was. She was not talking about you haven't gone through what I've gone through. She's saying that her experiences as a woman are just different from his experiences as a man. They aren't like. Hers aren't greater as a problem than his. They both have their own problems and they both have their own
and I agree,
issues. She wasn't saying that hers are a bigger issue. She's just saying that because of the world she lives in as a woman, which is a true fact, she's expected culturally and socially to be more in control of her feelings and be in more control of her emotions. And even at that point, they repeatedly demonstrate that she isn't fully in control of her feelings.
But also, here's the thing. Also, that may have been true in 1990, in the 1990s, but this is 2022. That kind of mentality isn't around much as it used to be. Now, I'll even say this. My wife watched this show with me, and she rolled her eyes at some of the lines that were said. And this is a woman who is very much so about me and her, about women, women taking control of their lives, standing up for themselves, and living life with integrity and respect.
Every feminist I know, every woman I know,
and fairness at the same time. And that was one of the things I had an issue with the show. Now that's all political. That's all bullshit. I'm not here to go too deep into that. But we'll talk about your end of it, why you think I may be wrong, and that's fine. It could maybe change my mind. But that was on a personal level. That was my only issue with it. Other than that, I mean, the CG was a lot better than what it was in the trailers. I mean, I was actually quite surprised personally. I did love a a lot of the jokes and humor that were there. I liked a lot of the breaking the fourth wall. And I will say the season finale was a great finale. I liked the meta on how they handled the breaking of the fourth wall and doing everything she did. And I actually liked Kevin, which was really fucking funny. Personally, I thought that was fucking hilarious. So yeah, I mean, I was okay with all that because, Ryan Reynolds Deadpool did the same thing where he jumps time and kills himself, technically. So, for her to go into the quote unquote real world actually was kind of cool. But yeah, there's more stuff we'll get into on my end. But Ryan, what about you, man? And then we'll kind of jump back to James and kind of go from there.
Well, to the surprise of no one, I'm probably the guy who liked this the least, and I'm probably going to give it a 4 out of 10. That might be generous. I don't like the, all political stuff aside, like whatever whether or not this kind of dialogue is heavy-handed or whatever. Like James said, tell me a story. I get all that stuff. Just tell me a story about this woman. And it is kind of a toxic thing in today's society where it's when you're dealing with something that is trying to be political like this and is trying to be socially conscious, that if you don't like it, well, then you suck and you don't get it. And I'm watching this and I'm like, nah, I get it. It's just not good. So like the finale has been kind of controversial to the surprise of no one. And some guy on Twitter was going off on this rant, like, how people don't get the finale and how it's about, a woman who is being told how to tell her story and is being told by everyone else how to tell her story. And is thematically what is sort of reinforced by her breaking the fourth wall in the end and literally telling people how not to tell her story. And it's like, this is what people don't get. And I'm like, no, I get it. It's just still not good. And again, this simply reminds me, this is the second Marvel property after Werewolf by Night we've done in a row where I've said this, and this will probably actually amuse James because he hasn't seen the movie still, but this reminded me a lot of Fargo, in that it's getting a lot of praise by certain people, but there's just not much there to appreciate, and I'll never get it. If I live to be 150 years old, I will never get Fargo, and I probably won't ever get this. The finale is so all that fourth wall breaking, and it's like they'd spend like 10 minutes, like that's like 10 minutes of screen time, and that's your climax. That is the climax, because once you take it out from the show and you simply go back to the reality of the 616 or 1999, whatever, you go back into that world and you actually cut all that fourth wall breaking, reality breaking stuff out, and you just go back into the story, nothing happens. And they use that fourth wall break as a way to give us some form of climax to distract from the fact that nothing actually happens. The story is literally, the story they're building is that these bad guys are after her. They want to steal her blood. They build that up the whole season. And at the end of the season, like, hey, that's a lame story. You were telling the story, and we're not going to tell that story anymore. So what's the story you're going to tell? Nothing. She goes, and literally, like, I hate to spoil Fargo for James, but at the end of Fargo, there's not much to spoil. The heroine, who is considered one of the great, AFI listed her as one of the 50 greatest heroes of all time in cinema, literally drives past the house of the bad guys, sees the car that she's looking for, and arrests the guy. The end. Nothing happens, and it's not a good movie. And in this, literally, she goes to the retreat. She goes in, and again, if you cut out that whole fourth wall break, that is our climax that they're giving us. If you break that out, she goes, nothing happens, and the guys get arrested. Sorry, I'm not satisfied, and I guess I don't get it, and I won't. So there you go.
Yeah. I can get some of your points. That's part of me was just like, that was the uneven part, is what story are we telling? The character development was kind of there a little bit. I thought maybe we were getting somewhere with, especially like the penultimate episode with Matt Murdock, when it featured Matt Murdock,
which was the most entertaining episode. Was by far,
not because of Matt. And for me, it's a funny thing. It wasn't me. I was so happy to see Daredevil Matt Murdock. To me, I felt I got the most character development from her in that episode than any of them, and I enjoyed it because of that too. But James, well, let's head back to you. What were some of the things you wanted to bring up that you were kind of alluding to in your introduction, and kind of other things you may have liked or didn't like, and kind of, or just, you know, piggyback on some things we've been saying.
Yeah. I don't even know where to begin right now. Because I feel like I'm in a position where I have to defend certain things about the show.
That's fine. We're not, I mean,
but I don't want to have to defend them, because to me, I think they're very evident. There was something Josh said that really irks me, and not because you said it, or not because of, the experience your wife has is very different from the women I know.
Of course. Of course.
And a lot of them say that the issues that are brought up in the show are not issues of the 90s. They're issues today. They're still very present. I was talking to a friend the other day, and this has nothing to do with the show itself, but it's an anecdote about the experience of women. And I saw a thing on the internet the other day about women getting into cars and by instinct having to check the back seat. Now, the chances of someone actually being in the back seat are incredibly slim. And I thought, wow, that's weird. That's something I've never really had to think about, because it's not a danger that is clear and present to my life. But I asked a few female friends, and they're like, oh yeah, every time. They always have to check around corners. They always have to watch over their shoulders, like constantly the expectations of how they're supposed to conduct themselves in the world, who they're supposed to be, what they're allowed to do and be. We have this narrative that, you know, because they have voting rights and they're in the workforce and, you know, they're not in the kitchen anymore, that feminism won and that everything is fine. But like, there's still a very clear and present danger to women today. And a lot of this show was demonstrating that in a sort of sitcom-ish way. Man, I'm trying to gather my thoughts. I'm kind of
okay.
The commentary about the guys and the creeps who are trying to screw over Jen, the whole King Hulk thing, or Hulk King, or whatever his name was, Intelligentsia, all that stuff's real. That stuff exists.
I agree.
The stuff about no, but people are saying that's not real. That doesn't exist. And it's like, any forum you go to is just vitriolic about women, vitriolic about anything involving women, vitriolic about women in media. And people's like takes on things are so inconsistent. And so just like in the meeting you saw with the guys where they're all standing around, they're discussing, well, it's not about her being a woman, but then they immediately double down on all the reasons why her being a woman is a problem. And it's like, she didn't earn this, or she didn't get this, and she didn't do that. And it's like, well, then Todd turns around and injects himself and turns into a Hulk. And it's like, what did you do to earn it besides steal her DNA?
I agree.
The whole thing with the exposing her at the big conference thing is a very real problem. They've actually had to put in legislation about this called revenge porn, and people hacking into other people's phones and computers and stealing pictures that don't belong to them, that are very much private matter, and putting them out into the public. And once that's out into public, there's nothing you can do about it. And it's not the men who are vilified for this. It's never the men who are vilified for it. It's always the woman. Always
the documentary about that on Netflix, actually really good.
And to me, all of that commentary that everyone's complaining about was so on point and so raw and real that, I don't know, it clicked with me, and it clicked with a lot of women I know. Where to me it fell apart was the workplace stuff. The workplace stuff was like the entire premise of the show is that it's supposed to be a workplace comedy that just happens to be about a superhero, not a superhero show that's a workplace comedy, but a workplace comedy about a superhero. And I don't feel like they actually kind of lived up to that, because a lot of the workplace stuff was just framing for the superhero stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And neither of those things really connected that well. The comedy to me didn't work terribly well. We talk about the fourth wall breaking. I don't feel like Jen did that frequently enough. I would completely forget between episodes that she was supposed to be doing that. And I feel like there should have been a lot more sort of use of that. That said, at the end, I do agree with the commenter that Ryan was talking about, how it's about her kind of taking control of her own narrative. in a way that only she can do, in a way like Deadpool did, but in a way that, like, because, you know, the way one of my favorite things about the commentary of the show, not just the social commentary, which you guys refer to as the political commentary, even though I don't think these should be political things. I hate when they term these things political or woke. These are just realities that we need to address. But the commentary about the MCU as a whole is completely on point. We have a problem with the MCU and their finales and their adventures and all that stuff ending in almost the same way all the time, where it's this big climactic, combative ending and all these characters drop in. Like, Bruce just drops in out of nowhere. And it's like, why is Bruce dropping in to save the day? Isn't this Jen's show? Shouldn't Jen be the one stopping all of this? But she can't because she's sidelined. And it's like, no, none of this works. And like, I love that they framed it that way in order to make this point about the MCU itself. And it's very, to me, self-aware about the problem with the MCU and things that they're trying to correct. Going back to the Kevin thing, I love the design. I love that it's basically GLaDOS, but writing an entire universe kind of thing. The whole, like when she's sitting there, and one of my favorite moments is she brings up the X-Men and then turns to the camera, kind of sticks her tongues out and goes, and I'm like, great Jen little fourth wall break. The Daredevil stuff was great. I love that it was there, but I hate that was like the primary focus of so many people, was when is Daredevil going to show up? And it's like, I really wish they hadn't put that in the teaser at all and just left it as a big surprise. But once he was there, it was great. The moment when he, like, they're at the very end and it makes absolutely no sense that he just drops down out of nowhere. It's fucking hilarious, because at this point, like, we're not dealing with an actual narrative. We're dealing with Jen wrapping things up in her way. And I'm okay with that. Again, I felt like there were too many cameos. The Wong Abomination stuff, it didn't really work for me. Bruce in the first episode was fine, but continually bringing Bruce up again and again and again was like, let this be Jen's show. Bruce has gone off to do his thing. And then he shows up at the end with a son and kind of almost maybe negates World War Hulk. And I'm like, I don't understand why you would do that. Now, a lot of people are speculating that maybe maybe they're trying to make him, they're introducing this character to be part of the whole Young Avengers thing. They're going to replace Teddy and make him Hulkling, which I'm not a fan of, because Teddy is a very important character, both as a gay icon, but he also has very deep roots into both Kree and Skrull mythology. And coming up to Secret Invasion, it's very important to have characters kind of tied into that.
I don't
especially
think
if there's,
that'd be a bridge too far, even for Marvel. Even for they've taken some big liberties, but
I didn't say that they were going to do it. I said that's what some people are speculating, and I'm explaining why I don't like that idea as a concept, because I think that Teddy is so important as a character, but so important to the wider Marvel universe and connecting the Young Avengers to that wider Marvel universe. I don't know. Sorry, I'm having a hard time like keeping my thoughts in order, because
that's okay. We'll come back when you kind of figure find some of those plot points. And going back to what I was talking about, and maybe saying 1990s was a little too far, but what I guess, giving myself more context, back in 1990s, 2000s, I saw all the time where women were belittled. They were, treated like shit in the workplace. It was more massive then. In this show, how it's structured is that it's just like that. Every single guy, with the exception of a few, are actually horrible people. Whereas in now, this is me, I could be completely wrong, it's kind of reverse, where more men are actually respecting women like they should be, and the assholes are the minority now. Whereas this show kind of takes it as every man is except for a few. And that was the issue I had. That was it. I could be wrong. Who knows? I mean, I don't know.
I would implore you to talk to more women outside of your wife, because
what's that?
I would implore you to talk to other women outside of your wife, because I can't speak for women. I am not a woman. I don't have their experiences, but from everything I have read, all the people I have talked to over the years, all the people I've had very intimate conversations with about their experience as women, this is still very commonplace. It may be more subtle than it used to be, but it's still there, and it's very insidious.
Well, I'm gonna play referee here, and I'm just gonna say whatever all that stuff, whatever the social issues in the show, you have your own thoughts on it. Certainly, I do have to kind of interject. I don't think it was quite as man bashing as Josh says. I think there was quite a few positive male characters. Everybody from Bruce to Matt to Pug to
Pug was a delight. I fucking loved Pug this entire show.
And also pleasant surprise that Josh Segarra, who's such a great villain on Arrow, has a comedic side to him.
Yeah, but actually, when he showed up, I was like, "Oh crap, he's gonna be a villain," because he plays such a good villain.
But yeah, for me, for me, it's kind of, the series wasn't that entertaining. It was supposed to be a comedy for the most part. It felt very uneven. Mm-hmm. I wasn't overly entertained. I didn't laugh a whole lot. It was supposed to be workplace comedy. I wasn't laughing, so that's an issue. But for me, it all comes down to the climax, and that's the only thing that I'm really interested in talking to James about, which is because James, you made some points that it's about her show and she, all those things are true, but don't you at least like you criticize the Marvel climaxes by saying, well, they're all very climactic. They're all very big stuff happens in the ending, and they're all the same.
That's not what I said.
But like,
they were commentating on that, right? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, I'm saying that there's a difference between it being a climax and it being the same climax over and over again, where not only does the hero save the day, but like all of his friends show up to help him out, kind of thing, which is more frequently an issue within these films. As we go further and further into the series, which is fun, but at the same time, it's like on a show where it's specifically about a woman trying to find her place in the workplace, in her own social life, within her family, within the superhero sort of world, and a character who does break the fourth wall. I think this was the best way to write an ending to this, because it doesn't need to be a climax to be an exciting end to the story. But because this was Jen and she does break the fourth wall, she is literally taking control of her own destiny and saying, this is bullshit. Why are all of these characters here when they have nothing to do with each other? And they all just happen to show up at the same place at the same time for this giant knockout brawl. Like Titania shows up out of nowhere. And Titania was such a random underused character when she should have been the primary antagonist throughout the show. Right. And even her commentary about being sort of like the social media guru kind of thing was like bland and lackluster. And like the actress who they got to portray her is an outstanding performer. If you've ever seen The Good Place, she is terrific. And they completely underused her in this. Like she's just completely wasted. The climax doesn't need to be a big bombastic adventure to be exciting, thought-provoking, fun. And I thought this was a great twist on how to do that kind of big bombastic ending. You don't need to do a big bombastic ending for it to still be a climax. Everything came to a head and Jen got the story that she wanted to, because like none of these characters should have been there to begin with. But
they all still show up then. Titania still shows up after that.
Yes, and that's the ridiculous part.
But Daredevil does. Bruce still shows up in the end. It doesn't actually affect anything. And if you take out that fourth wall break, it's there's no climax at all. Like
the fourth wall break is the climax. That's the point.
Because what you're saying is it's the climax because she is able to direct the story in a way that she wants.
Because the narrative of this show has been a meta commentary on so many different things. The ultimate climax to a meta commentary show is to do a meta commentary climax.
Sure.
Which is exactly what they did, pointing out the flaws of the usual type of climax they're doing by demonstrating just how absurd these moments are. And Jen saying, no, we're not doing that. This doesn't make any sense.
And all I'm saying is you would still, if she's trying to change this story up, you would still need a story within there that would be sufficient without the fourth wall break. And if
the fourth wall break is the story, that's the point. You're saying
because she's directing the other story.
If you take out the big fight at the end of Endgame, is there really a story to end?
It's not the same thing.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Because you're saying that the climax is her changing the story, but then
no, the climax is the meta commentary. That's the point. it's the commentary about the MCU. It's the commentary about superhero genres in general, that about how these movies usually come to a finale, pointing out all the flaws in that and saying, we're not going to do that. Now, you might not find that satisfying.
So the commentary is that the movies that we have all grown to love and how they're structured is wrong?
Not that they're wrong, but that we need to start finding new ways of doing it.
Interesting.
There's a writing technique called hanging a lantern, where you point out the flaws in your own story by addressing them in the story. That's what they're doing, is they're addressing the problems with the MCU as a whole, with superhero adventures as a whole. You can still have a big bombastic climax, but all of these things don't make sense. They're goofy and silly. And the whole point of the show is the meta commentary. It's about the fourth wall breaking. It's about her. I'm just spinning in circles, and I don't think me and Ryan are going to agree on this, but I think you're missing the point, Ryan, that it's not a.
Well, no, you've explained the point very, very well and very eloquently.
I don't think I have.
I'm not entertained by that. I certainly don't think that there's much that needs to be. I don't think that there's a Marvel formula that's as broken as the show seems to think there is. They're
not saying it's broken. They're just saying there's flaws and establishing those flaws. And because it's a show about commentary and it's Jen's show about breaking the fourth wall, that's their climax, is doing the fourth wall break, doing an over the top fourth wall break by literally having her jump through Disney Plus into a different show, a documentary show, to go to the Disney lot to confront the people who are writing this show. That's the story. And I think that's a great finale and a great story. And I think that's a great way to do something different without it being the same tired thing. And I thought that was fun. I thought that was interesting. I thought that was, for a series that, we say wasn't very funny, that was hilarious. That entire sequence from beginning to end was hilarious.
Yeah. And I will say, I did like how, just to avoid this in the future, like Kevin did say, he sealed off this, way she can get through, so she'll never be able to get through again. Because if you kept that plot point there, that character ability to do that, that just ruins anything she's ever gonna. Not ruins. That's the wrong.
Oh yeah, no, she's gonna be. She would be OP in every single story she's in, and it's like,
yeah,
you can't have that going forward because you still need to have her included in future properties and future adventures without it being, oh, Jen will just fix it with the snap of the finger.
Yep.
They use it once and then they create a way out of it. Yeah. I thought it was very clever. I thought it was very,
like, to close out that way of doing it. At least she could do it once and then just show the audience, kind of thing. So that was very interesting. But I mean, all in all, I mean, it was still fine. It's still fun. I just had that one issue with it, and besides it being uneven as far as a storytelling perspective, that was really it. I mean, other than that, I found a lot of the stuff very funny. There's a lot of physical comedy I found very appealing and very funny as well. Like I will say, I was so worried about Daredevil because they did say, like, in an interview, that he was going to be more lighthearted. He is, but not in the way that people were fearing. I think
he's not a different character. He's just making jokes and reacting to comedy.
Yeah, and I think that
he still honestly,
he still had a dark, serious tone to him. And he still had a very seriousness to him, which I still loved. Like,
he still was comedic in the Netflix series. He still made jokes in the Netflix series.
Oh yeah,
but there's a difference in the tone of how they treat it there and how they treat it here. I don't think it's a difference in the character. I just think it's a difference in the setting he's in. And when you're in a more lighthearted situation, you can have a little more fun with it.
Yeah, and you can also play that off of, like, because say they did continue on, like, this is the same exact Daredevil as the Netflix shows. You can even explain that away, is that he has grown since then. Now that he's fully defeated Kingpin, even though he's out and about now, he has beaten him. He knows he can beat him. And
that was one of my favorite lines that threw back to the Netflix series, was him saying that he's doing all this pro bono work in Hell's Kitchen, throwing back to the ending of his series, where the three of them are back together, and fuck off, series, not Siri. Sorry, my phone was alerting me, asking me what I wanted. Speaking of GLaDOS and Kevin.
It just reminded me of that yeah, I know you hate Big Bang Theory. There was a moment they were doing something with Siri on an episode. It just made me think of that. It's funny.
But like, I love that idea of them nodding to that ending in Daredevil, and he's still on that path of trying to do better and trying to help more people, and focusing on that, and explaining him being in LA to begin with. It's like, well, sometimes you got to do one for them and you do one for me. And it's like, he's there because it's a rich client who can pay the bills and keep them open longer. So you got to do that once in a while. And it's not like the guy's guilty of anything. He was perfectly within his rights. And it's like, that doesn't violate Matt's sort of like methodology about, he only represents innocent people. It's, it still works. I don't know. The entire time Daredevil was there, and most of the time that Hulk was there, I loved. And I loved a lot of the side characters. Man-Bull was hilarious. The fact they put in like characters like Porcupine. I know people are kind of irritated by the Wrecking Crew being sort of like not quite the Wrecking Crew that they were in the comics, but it's like the Wrecking Crew in the comics are like absurdly D-list, just ridiculous characters. And I love that they kind of did it, but was still poking fun at them and having fun with it. Frogman wasn't like, I know that was the same episode as Daredevil, but the entire Frogman story I thought was so well done.
The Frogman part was very interesting. Kind of like an entitled, quote unquote, wanting to be a superhero, but really not. And it kind of gives that feeling that because the Soviet, which I thought was very interesting that they brought up, as the Sokovia Accords have been repealed.
Yeah, I like that.
There's more of these people who think they're superheroes, but in reality they're not. And I kind of like that commentary that, there's probably plenty of people just like him who think, oh, I can do this too. But
that's what I meant by, like, I love the idea of them exploring aspects of the MCU that we don't get to see, including, like, we would never see Frogman in a Spider-Man movie or a Captain America movie.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in like the far background of like a photo of like 100 superheroes kind of thing. But in something like this, it makes perfect sense because he's such a D-list character who is absurd. And they're making fun of the fact that he is completely an absurd, like, he's one of the Great Lake Avengers, for God's sake. Come on. Like, that's like, that tells you the level of just how ridiculous this character is. And the second I saw him on screen, I was so excited because I knew that they were going to be having fun with like tertiary characters that just don't matter to the larger narrative, but they're tying into this story, showing that this part of the world exists. That's one of the things I like about the Marvel Universe as a comic thing, is that there's so much depth and such a breadth of characters to kind of draw from, that it gives me hope that we can have just about any character show up at various different points. And I enjoyed all of that very much.
Yeah, so let's kind of wrap up our thoughts. I think we hit on quite a few things. Hope I'm not seen as a bad guy or an asshole. I mean,
no, I think I'm the asshole at this point.
I think people who know me know I respect women probably more than anybody in this world because I have a daughter. But for me, there's also a line and there's also a way of equality in how you present things, especially today. And it just kind of triggered me a little bit more than I expected, I will say. But overall, I found the show, and for the most part, even though it had lacked its direction of a story, it still was enjoyable. It had some laughs. The CGI was a lot better than I anticipated.
That was one of the things I didn't like.
Was the CGI was a lot better than you anticipated?
Yeah, no, the CGI was pretty bad.
Because the trailers looked like
Who am I talking to?
The trailers look like ass.
The show looked like ass.
Yeah, the show did not look good.
I thought it was, from what it looked like in the trailer, it was a lot better than what it was in the trailer. That's all.
They improved from the trailers. I'll give you that.
I would like to watch the show that Josh watched. I really would. Like, that sounds like a better show, but
like I loved how in this if this is a different iteration of Daredevil, he's much more agile. Like in that fight with him and She-Hulk, like he was doing some shit I had never seen him do in the Netflix shows, which is great. I love it.
It's the same character. It's just they have a budget now. That's the only difference. Netflix didn't have a budget to do that kind of stuff.
Some CGI stunts, yeah.
Yeah, they now have the budget to do the absurd, like, Spider-Man level acrobatics. And I heard so many people complaining about that, like, oh, Daredevil's just like Spider-Man now. It's like, Daredevil's just as agile as Spider-Man. He always has been. That's kind of the point. Netflix couldn't do that because they didn't have the budget, but also they were trying to ground him more in realism. Now that the Marvel universe as a whole has him again,
Yep.
They're allowed to play with that a little bit. And I thought that shot of him, like the ground crumbling underneath of him, him still escaping, looked great. I thought it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I'm glad to see that we're gonna get much more of Matt Murdock even before his episode. He's gonna be here in Echo. That's gonna be coming out before his show,
which will probably appeal a lot more to what the people who are complaining about him appearing in this will want, is like the darker sort of, because Echo is going to be a darker show, just as Hawkeye was a slightly darker show, even though it was like set at Christmas time. There was a lot of like, it was a bit darker, for lack of, I don't want to say edgier, but
and while I did love the season finale, I don't know if it cracked my top 3 as far as the Netflix shows go. I'm sorry, Netflix, the Disney Plus shows. I don't know if it cracked my top 3 necessarily, but it's still a good one. But Ryan, any last minute thoughts before we get out of here?
It definitely didn't crack my top 3. I mean, I don't know if I have a top 3. I haven't been overly impressed by, well, you guys know I haven't been overly impressed by pretty much anything since I think Endgame. It's a movie that James hates, but Joker from 2019. So I pretty much in 3 years, I don't think much has really impressed me. I think we talked about Cobra Kai being the biggest thing since 2019. The best,
and even that you're giving low scores to.
Was it 8? I think I gave it 8 out of 10, which is pretty fucking good. That's but it's like, I want your 9. I want that 9. I want to see it.
I haven't seen Ryan give a 9 to anything since 10 Cloverfield Lane.
No, we literally just fucking said, where did you have a blackout or what was the anyway?
What did you give Joker? I thought you gave Joker an 8, if I remember correctly.
No, well, first of all, I don't think God, we're getting so sidetracked here. I didn't see Joker for a long time, so I don't think I reviewed it with you, but I probably would have given it a 10. I said my 10 out of 10 movies are like 2016 were 10 Cloverfield Lane and Captain Fantastic. 2017 would probably be The Big Sick and Coco. 2018 would be Avengers Infinity War, and 2019 would be Joker. So at any rate, this does not get that, but I think I've already voiced my opinions very, very succinctly. So yay, on Excelsior, onward to better things.
James, what about you? Any last minute thoughts and what you're hoping in the future?
I mean, I would love to see more. I want to see season 2. Again, I'm very curious what this means for the Hulk franchise as a whole, because the rumor coming into this and what it looked like in the early episodes was that they were building up to World War Hulk, but bringing Scar home doesn't necessarily ruin that, but it's like he would have to go back to Sakaar for a 3rd time, and it's like narratively, I don't know if you can justify that necessarily, especially if the sun is on Earth now. It's like you've kind of put the cart before the horse now, and it's like I don't understand why you're doing it in that order. I'm gonna give you the faith that there's a plan with that, but I thought that was such a weird thing to introduce now of all times. Again, the comedy was hit or miss. When it hit hard. Some of the side characters were great, but they just weren't there frequently enough. Like Pug should have been a much more frequent appearance in the show. What's her name? The secretary should have been a much more
Nikki.
Yeah, Nikki should have been, like, she was there, but like I don't feel like she was really carrying any sort of narrative weight until like 1 or 2 episodes, and it's like that should have been much more frequent. The whole workplace thing as a framing device for the superhero stuff, to me, I get what they were going for. I don't think they nailed it like they wanted to. I know people are upset about the social commentary, but I love the social commentary. I love the meta commentary. And I know I'm going to be on the wrong side of this because a lot of people are not going to be happy with my take on things, but I don't know. I don't think I'm necessarily wrong on that, but having spoken to a lot of women about their experiences being a man, I don't feel like this was male bashing, but I feel like there was a lot of great points brought up about the experience of women in the workplace, in the world. I want to give this a higher score. I just logically can't, because there were so many things that didn't work. The things that did work worked wonderfully. And that's why I gave it as high a score as I have. But like the structure of the show just didn't work. And that's a huge problem.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, all right, folks.
Structure is usually my go-to word, like my motto.
Oh, structure. Yes, structure.
I'm an editor. I talk about structure all the time. What are you talking about?
Well, I don't know. I'm not saying you don't. I just use the word as much as I do. I don't. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I
don't
like to hear
own words,
James.
Ryan.
You don't own it, Ryan.
I don't know. But I'm not saying I own it. I say I love to hear it come out of James's mouth, because that's my number one complaint about most things is the structure. And that's certainly my complaint about this is the structure. So that's.
And on this one, I agree with you. Most things I don't agree with you, but this one I definitely agree with you. The structure was weak. The framing of a lot of things was weak. And the show suffered as a whole, but I think what it did do well and what it really focused on, it did well enough that I was entertained throughout. Like there wasn't a single episode where I was bored throughout the entire thing. There were episodes where I was bored during most of it, but then like something really fun and enjoyable would happen. And it's like, it kept me going week to week, but the sort of like commentary around the show from a small but vocal group of people who just flooded my social media for the longest time, and so many people who have similar sort of perspectives on this to me. I've had to spend like the last 2 months defending this show left and right, and it's like I don't even feel that strongly about the show itself, but the things that like they're attacking, I don't feel are merited in their attack. So like I'm exhausted from having to talk about this show.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to enjoy it. And the things that I did enjoy, I did enjoy. The things I didn't enjoy, there's definitely criticism to be had about this show. I'm in full agreement with that. And anyone who says, well, you're just sexist for not liking it, it's like, I would hope at this point I've demonstrated I am not sexist.
Same.
But there are still things worth criticizing. So I don't know. I'm glad to get this one done. I look forward to more, but I'm just exhausted. So
yeah.
Sounds like
I'll probably just rewatch it again now that I can watch the series as a whole.
But no, the problem, Ryan, is I'm not looking for these things. It's that they fall into realms that I am enjoying when they shouldn't have been there in the first place. And that's a problem that's come up with a lot of shows like Star Wars and the misogyny around that. Like the misogyny around various other MCU characters, various DC characters, all kinds of other shows that have a focus on women. The endless misogyny around things like Avatar: The Last Airbender, and it's like, how are you misogynistic against that? It's just a delightful cartoon from beginning to end, and it's like,
what was misogynistic about that?
Oh, don't get me started.
Misogynistic fans about things who don't like.
No, I love that show. It's the commentary that a lot of people bring about that show that just drive me. Anyway,
yeah.
She-Hulk.
Well, that's all we have time for today, everybody. Thank you so much for watching it. And more importantly, though, what did you think of She-Hulk season 1? Leave your comment section below. Give us your score out of 10, your positives and negatives. Go spoiler heavy, and join the conversation down below. Also,
and I won't look at the comments.
Like button, subscribe to the channel so you can see more of our great content in the future. What's that, James?
I won't be looking at the comments.
Yeah. That's all we have for today. Again, I'm Josh Williams.
I'm Ryan Murphy.
I'm James Sheridan.
Thank you for keeping it real.
With Real Time.
Good night.